welding cast iron with our gun, we found out that if you will use a high heat or a welding cast iron flux instead of a brazing flux, that the results seem to be a whole lot better. We like our number 2 Peterson here, this number 2 high heat flux, but there again we give you the name and number of some other fluxes, which is all in our instructional book. Also, we just use just a standard 100% pure cast iron rod right there, 3/16, 1/4 inch diameter, 18 inches long. That's what we call a cast weld 111. So we give you the name and number in the book, but if you want to ask for it at your welding supply house, if they don't have it, Thermocoat Welco that makes your standard TIG or Heliart rods actually bought the company out that makes that cast weld 111. Now you can still use your nickel rod or your flux coated bronze rods, but a lot of times with your nickel you get such a high Rockwell hardness, it's very hard to drill, tap, and machine. You just about have to have a special carbide cutter. When we get through welding our cast, the machinability is excellent. Also, you don't have no discoloration as you go in and weld right there. If you can blend it and grind it down, you're just putting cast right back into cast. Now, we've been able to have some real good results even on a lot of the older casts. This is just an old manifold right here off of an antique car. It's real low. The more carbon, the harder it is to weld. But with our gun, we've had some real good results going to a lot of antique tractor shows and also a lot of your hit and miss engine shows. Been able to weld up a lot of that old difficult cast that your regular conventional torches and electric welders have been having trouble welding. Now we can weld from very thin cast all the way up to 1-inch plate. Now if you've got an oven, if you've got a barbecue grill, some sort of stove, all you want to do is come in and just sort of preheat it just a little bit. Now if you don't have an oven, you can take the torch. The preheating is not real critical with ours. Notice that we've come in here and just ground out some slots. You always want to grind out the crack that you're going to weld. And actually you want to go in there and just sort of preheat it just a little bit. We're going to heat our rod up, stick it in our Peterson flux. We're going to weld it up. The most important part on cast is coming back and post-heating it. Either stick it back in the oven, use your barbecue grill, stove, or whatever. If you don't have that, you'd have to come back with a torch and heat it up real good, heat that whole part up, because actually allowing it to cool too fast causes most of the problems with your cast cracking. Now if you're doing a real thick piece, if you don't have an oven or a grill, you're going to have to use a regular torch to go in there and heat it up and post-heat it, because our gun is so concentrated that it would take longer to heat it. So if you're going to do a real thick or a real big piece, use a regular torch or a rosebud to preheat it and post-heat it if you don't have an oven. All right, so we're still going to use our neutral flame. That's about 3/16 to 1/4 inch, so I've got my number 2 tip, just a regular cast iron rod. All right, now we don't have an oven or a grill, so I'm just going to come in here. Let me move my lens just for a second. You will come in here and cut your flame up. You'll just come in and preheat it just a little bit. We're just going to knock the chill out of it, just enough of where you can touch it, and it's still just a little bit warm. We'll come back and weld this one right here. Now you will also need just a regular standard shade 5 oxyacetylene lens for all of your welding, except on the aluminum. Something I forgot to mention when we was welding aluminum, that if you're going to do a lot of aluminum, we have a didymium glass. They make some cobalt lenses, but you will definitely need a special lens if you're going to do some aluminum welding and do a lot of it. Sometimes with your standard shade 5 glass, it's real hard to see that glare because of the flux, so you might have trouble seeing the weld puddle. All right, so once you preheat it, just come in here and just heat your cast iron rod up just a little bit. All we're going to do is just stick it in the flux. All right, we're going to come back, stick our lens up right there, so a neutral flame. All right, and we're also going to come back and cut the heat down. You're going to find out that you don't need much heat to weld that cast. If you're too hot, you're going to blow through. If you're not hot enough, it's just not going to melt. Now just lay that rod right down into that groove. And so what we're going to do is actually put all the heat right on the rod. It'll take just a second to wash that rod right down in the groove right there. Now every time that we actually wash that rod into that groove, you're going to see us move our torch back and forth right across that weld that we're going to weld up, that little groove right there. and it'll let you know when the temperature's just right, that cast will start flowing just like butter in a pan. Then just come right back, get a little bit more rod. Just be patient with your cast. Run the torch back and forth. Come back, lay your rod right back in there, wash the rod off, then move the torch back and forth. Now the amount of penetration you want down in that groove depends on the amount of heat that you hold right there. The more heat you hold over that groove, the more it's going to penetrate. But it seems to weld cast about as good as it does anything. That very low pressure, you're not blowing the puddle out. Very soft flame. Now a lot of people want to know if we can build it up. Just let the redness go out right there. So if you want to come back and make another pass, as long as you're getting a good smooth flow right there, you don't need any more flux. Now every now and then we'll run across a real dirty piece. And every time you try and weld it, it looks like it don't want to flow real smooth. Go ahead and make that initial pass, trying to get it to flow as good as you can. It's just floating those impurities to the top. And usually by the time you go back over it, you can get it by that second or third pass on that extremely dirty stuff. As you can see right there, you can make pass after pass after pass and build it up. All right, so at this point right here, if you don't have an oven or a grill to put it back into, we're going to take our torch, cut the heat up. We're going to go back and post-heat it. You want to heat that whole piece up where it can cool real slow. If you don't have that oven or that grill, some guys put them in sand, lime, cover them with asbestos blankets. Just take a cardboard box and cover it up. Now when I get through here, I also want to show you just how nice the machinability is. And I'm also going to not take the time to heat it up as much as I should, but you want to heat that whole thing up. I've heard anywhere from 400 to 800 degrees. I've even known some people to heat it up to 1100, which seems to be awful warm. But just heat that whole piece up real good, moving out from actually where you welded it right there. Remember, stress, cast cannot withstand stress. So heat it up real good and allow it to cool very slowly. Try and keep a cool breeze from coming in and cooling it too quick. All right, so we're going to come back here and take our file. I want to hold this piece right here for you, where we can actually see this piece right here. Now you can actually see just how nice a job on that cast right there that we can actually do. And you're filed right here. Let me get right here where we can get a good grip on it. Let's try another file right here. Ah, there we go. Now you can see right there, I just knocked a little bit off of it, but the machinability is excellent. And again, if you can file it down and grind it back in, you won't have no discoloration on it right there. Torch does an excellent job on cast, and usually about 1 or 2 repairs, and you've actually done paid for that gun right there. All right, now we're through with our welding. We're getting ready to start cutting some light gauge and some heavier plate with a Henrob 2000.